Yes, of course, visibility is a good thing. Of course, you want to get your name out there in as many places as possible to as many potential customers and clients. But not all visibility opportunities are created equal. And there are some situations where you could be putting yourself in some hot water in a way that could be fatal, even for your brand, if you're not careful.
Welcome to Camera Confident. I'm your host, Shirley Engel, former TV correspondent turned entrepreneur. Tune in to master what to say, how to say it, and how to create buzz for your brand. Whether you're hitting record for the first time or trying to land major media opportunities, I've got you covered. Get ready to crush it on video or stage, attract more clients, and bring in more money so you can run your business and live your life your way.
Hello, and welcome back to the Camera Confident podcast. I'm Shirley, and I may sound a little different today because I'm recovering from a pretty brutal flu, so bear with me, please. I really wanted to do this episode today on a topic that I think is a really hot one in the visibility space, and that is there such thing as bad publicity? If you're a business owner, a service-based business, a thought leader, or anyone who is looking for attention, for that know, like, and trust factor so you can attract more clients, boost more revenue, this episode is for you. This is all about assessing what opportunities are the right ones, whether they fall in your lap or whether you're pursuing them yourself, and how to know when something might not be the right fit for you. Because it's true. While publicity is great, and it's always great to get your face out there, the more people that know about you, the better it is. But I would argue there is such a thing as bad publicity, and you want to make sure not to associate yourself with anything, whether it's a situation, a brand, any kind of incident or trend that could end up hurting your brand and you in the long run. So let's walk through what is bad publicity. So first things first, where does that adage even come from? There's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, it's really from the world of celebrities, the world of politicians, of people in the spotlight. There's plenty of stories out there, and I don't have to cite them for you, of people who are really famous who were in some kind of bad situations, and then they bounced back. They made a comeback. People started to like them again. Maybe they got canceled, and then all of a sudden they're back in the spotlight. People love a good redemption story. And so these make really great stories in general. And social media is a rapidly evolving place where memories are pretty short. So, you give the dust a little time to settle, and sometimes you can come back bigger and stronger. But that doesn't always apply to people like entrepreneurs or people who are looking to get exposure for their brands, right? Those situations are often the exceptions to the rule. Let's face it, we're not all celebrities. We're not all big time politicians. And a lot of times these whole cancel situations end up as a permanent cancel for a lot of people. So it could be fatal for your brand, especially if you're just getting started. Now, even in business, a lot of brands will purposely seek out controversy because, hey, it gets a lot of eyeballs. It gets them a lot of attention that maybe some vanilla content might not. But there's a catch. There's always a very carefully calculated risk behind it, or at least there should be. And those brands are managed by publicists who are professionals who really know their stuff. This is what they eat, breathe, sleep. They really assess opportunities, and they won't hitch the brand to something that they know or maybe don't know in the long run could end up backfiring on them. Now, that's always an imperfect science, right? You can't always predict or know how things are going to go. So what is an entrepreneur, a thought leader, service-based business owner? What are you to do to protect yourself? Well, I've got you. Why are people drawn to controversy in the first place? Well, controversy sparks curiosity. Curiosity means sharing with your friends. It means talking about it at the dinner table. It means spurning new trends. It means memes. It means so much more mileage. Those 15 minutes of fame, or these days it's more like 3 seconds, will turn into a much longer runway where you can bask in that spotlight. That could mean a lot of new followers, new clients, new customers, and of course, new dollar signs, but it doesn't always work out that way. So how do you know which ones are good to jump on and which ones are not? Well, firstly, when it comes to the idea of trends, I'm always the one who says, do it with caution. Okay. Trends are not necessarily your friend. Sure, there's some things that are fun to jump on that seem pretty, harmless or innocuous. If there's social media trends, everybody's making a certain kind of video, and literally thousands of people, if not millions, are making this type of video. The chances are that by you doing it, you're not going to end up in any kind of hot water unless something about the way you do it or how it reflects on your brand or something could end up being trouble for you. You could always re-record something later and say, look, I know I took part in this, but I've since evolved my views XYZ. So there are some ways to come back from something like that, even if it turns a bit sour, as long as you're not the only one doing it. But if you're I'm going to put myself out on a whim and I'm going to try to do this thing that could go viral, I'm going to say this really controversial thing, which may offend people, it's out there. You can't take that back. So do those things with care. Sometimes they're deliberate, disruptive pieces of content that get you visible, get you viral, but you've got to know the consequences. You've got to be aware of what could happen if you jump on these bandwagons or try to create these things in the first place. Do your research and know who it is that you're collaborating with. Don't just take opportunities if they fall in your lap. Speaking of which, there is one particular opportunity in the visibility space, especially for people who serve other entrepreneurs, those B2B businesses. There's a lot of coaching services out there that are trying to get new clients. And in 2024, that can be a lot harder. So people are coming up with new and innovative ways to create funnels to bring people in. One of those funnels is called the podcast bait and switch in Camera Confident Academy. That is my signature program, and we talk all about how not to fall for this ruse because it is not always the best thing to be associated with. Here's how it works. Someone approaches you and they're like, hey, I would love to have you on my podcast. And maybe they pay you a few compliments about what you do. You're like, this is awesome. I didn't even have to ask for this. They're like, let's just hop on a call so we can, see if it's the right fit or, talk about what we're going to talk about or whatever it is. This has happened to me a few times. So you get on that call and all of a sudden it's like a sales call and they start asking you questions about your business and how much revenue you make and questions that could seem totally irrelevant to what you would have talked about on that podcast. In that case, what they're doing is they're trying to qualify you and nudge you towards a coaching program. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that in the sense that, if they're upfront about that's what they're doing and they're giving you a legit visibility opportunity on a podcast to be able to be like, okay, you can be on our podcast and then, you can see if our services are the right fit. But should you do that podcast just because it gets you a visibility opportunity? Well, that type of tactic, of sales tactic, really could end up upsetting some kinds of people, right? So some people in your audience may not appreciate you being associated with that type of strategy, and that could end up reflecting badly on you. So I was in one of these situations where I was on a podcast and then they were like, yeah, we're going to promote it. And then they didn't really end up promoting it. And I posted it and it turned out that I was just promoting this brand that brings a bunch of business owners on only to try to sell coaching services. It just didn't really reflect that well. So that's a lesson that I learned to be a lot more selective about these podcast opportunities. I was even in a situation where somebody had me on a call and I stopped the call and I said, wait, I actually don't know if I'm on the right call. I thought this was, and then I talked about what my understanding was. So again, it's not that those practices are illegal or there's anything wrong with them inherently, but they sometimes can be a little sneaky and people may not appreciate that. And if that particular brand later gets associated with that and they're on the outs or they're canceled, well, you were on that podcast too, and did you promote it? So you want to really think carefully about, especially in the podcast world, some of the opportunities that you take. There are situations where publicity could be downright harmful. I'm talking if you endorse or are endorsed by a controversial brand, someone or a brand that ends up doing something that's really, really negative in the media, in the public eye, and then you get dragged down with it. And that is one of those things that could really make you suffer when it comes to your audience, because you could lose that trust. And once you lose that trust, it's really hard to regain it. So be careful what you endorse, especially anything political, anything that could be controversial. You do really want to be careful, unless that is your brand, unless that's part of what you do is stir this stuff up, or, there could be situations where this stuff maybe does play to a brand's benefit. But most of the time, and for the clients that I work with and the situations that I see, it really doesn't bode well. So just stay out of it if you can. Partnerships and affiliates can be super beneficial and will get more eyes on your business. It's also a great way to get visible, but have you vetted your partners and affiliates? Are you really aware of what they're doing on their channels in addition to promoting your stuff and working for you? Because ultimately, you don't control those brands. And if they go off script or they do something that ends up reflecting badly on you, either unethical practices, maybe viewpoints on certain issues, if you're in the health space and maybe someone is flagged for some reason by regulators, if you're in the legal space or financial space, there's a lot of considerations about hitching your wagon to someone else's wagon. So you better verify that that wagon is in good working order and that that's something that you want to be associated with. There are situations where if you peel back some of the layers, perhaps there are some controversial takes on political issues, for instance. Maybe there's some comments made on other platforms that have garnered some negative attention. Don't just check out that potential partner on the platform you're going to collaborate on. Look at other places they've been. Google is your friend. Ask ChatGPT. Generally speaking, it's probably gonna be fine if it's someone that you have a business relationship with, you've known for a long time, you've followed for a long time, there's a track record. Where you want to proceed with caution is when it's someone brand new you've never heard of. You want to be doing research on them. So take on the position of a bit of a private eye. Go on all their different social channels. Check Google, check reviews, check Reddit. Look up some history, if you can, of how they collaborated with other brands. Doing your homework will be really beneficial to just being able to sleep at night knowing that that collaboration is something that's going to be beneficial in the long run. That's really my best advice on how to avoid the trap of bad publicity. The more research you do going in, the more clear you are on your own values as a brand, on what you tolerate, what you don't, what you stand for, and what you don't. That's going to help you really pick and choose these opportunities, whether they're falling into your lap or whether you are seeking them yourself. That is going to be really, really important. Finally, I want to give you some advice on what to do if, oh gosh, I got some bad publicity. What do I do now? First of all, I want you to take a deep breath. Okay. The purpose of this episode is not to scare you or make you wary of taking visibility opportunities or, being a little too critical or too picky. Like, yes, you want to get out there for sure. That's the whole purpose of Camera Confident, but you do want to be smart about it. If it happens to you, it's happened to all of us. It's happened to me. Don't sweat it. First of all, take a breath. The internet moves incredibly quickly. The news cycle moves at lightning speed, and chances are it's never as big a deal as you make it in your head. If you feel like damage has been done and you need to do some damage control, this is where you over-communicate. You issue your apologies if you need to. You issue an updated statement. Look, I endorsed this, or I said this, or I collaborated with so-and-so, and it's come to my attention that, this situation has happened or this wasn't appropriate. Just explaining what's happened. People also understand that you're human and that sometimes you'll make mistakes. Trying to cover it up, run away from it, delete it, hope nobody saw it, deny it ever happened. None of that stuff works. What works is honesty and integrity, and people will trust you more if you admit your mistakes and move on. So hopefully you found this episode valuable. Hopefully there's some nuggets in here that you can take on your visibility journey. I'd love to hear how this resonated. Do you have examples of bad publicity that maybe got you in some hot water? Or do you have any more tips that I didn't cover in this short episode? As always, I'd love to hear from you. You can get my contact in the show notes. Until next time, keep recording, keep shining, and keep telling those great stories.
Thanks for listening to Camera Confident. Help us grow by subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to follow me on LinkedIn at Shirley Engel and on Instagram at b.camera.confident. See you next time.